All right, cool. Well, this is Burn the Ship. We are officially recording. Burn the Ship is focused on connecting entrepreneurs with professionals that can help you go all in on your business. People that have walked the walk, talked the talk, been through that journey, and hopefully we can learn a little. And I think that your product and kind of the service that you provide to business is very, very unique. There's probably going to be a bunch of people in the audience that don't exactly know or don't understand what it is that you do. So I invite you to explain it to us like we're fifth graders. But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us about yourself and your business.
Yeah. So I'm Nick Kammerdiener. I am the owner of Kammerdiener Technologies. So we do DevSecOps and IT consulting. So that really just kind of comes down to everything from running the server for a VoIP system all the way up to running your application at scale across hundreds of servers and everything. So we specialize in both kind of cloud and bare metal data center deployments, which is a little bit more unique just because we will do like the bare metal and not the cloud. But yeah, so I always like to joke, we are the ones that help take it from a developer's computer up to the cloud and actually running and operating and being an app that people can actually use, and then trying to help scale, make it cost effective, and prevent any unexpected bills.
Sure. And so tell me kind of the story, right? How you got into doing what you're doing. Obviously, there's some school involved, but usually people are a little bit involved in the technology side of things before that. So kind of tell me the story of kind of how you got to where you are today in your business.
Yeah. So back when I was in high school, I started working with the IT department at the small private Christian school
I
was at, North Cup Christian around the corner.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I was working with the IT department there over the summers, and then when I graduated high school, while I was going to Kennesaw State, working on an applied CS and a minor in information systems, I was still working with them. That was kind of one of those, great. I learned a lot, being a person of being in a department of three, really getting to work on the firewalls, the networking, getting down into the nitty gritty of everything. And that's really what's helped kind of keep the bare metal side there. But that was kind of always one of those, I always joke, it was 30 minutes of feeling like a genius for 6 months of support.
Yeah.
Just because it's, low-level IT ultimately at the end of the day. From there, I moved into more of a traditional development kind of environment. We were working with just building out, if you've heard of the EOS operating system. Oh, yeah. So the company, it's 90. So helping to build out essentially a software around that operating system and helping to run that. So that was really good, just kind of getting into like my first ever development gig, the first ever time that like I'd written code professionally. Like, sure. I've written it through college and all, but obviously finally writing it professionally. But that was kind of where I started getting into the cloud, started seeing kind of, hey, this bill just went up $2,500 this month, right, for whatever reason. From there, I actually kind of moved into a little bit more of some blockchain development and kind of doing some blockchain work and everything. And that was kind of when I started the LLC, just because people were, hey, I could use some help on this, I could use some help on that. And it was kind of getting to that point. I was like, let's get an LLC just for the protections and everything like that. From there, after kind of the blockchain development, I kind of fell more so into more of the infrastructure side. And that's where I really started to get into DevOps and started to actually working with Mac Stadium and kind of building out a lot of their infrastructure for their virtualization platform. And so kind of, working with Ansible and Terraform and getting all the systems stood up and really starting to work with it. And that's when I was really starting to kind of see, how much true infrastructure work exists in the world. And kind of there, working with a bunch of different companies of all different sizes, hobby devs, all the way up to bigger companies. That's when I really started to see this hobby dev, they don't need a big time DevOps person. They just need someone to come in, help set up the pipelines, help make sure everything runs, and then just be available for, hey, everything broke on a Friday. Sure. Can you hop in? So from there, kind of moved into a little bit more of like a bigger Fortune 500 place. And that was really good, just kind of to see some of the scale and to really start to work at scale. And then also kind of, working for a bigger company, being able to kind of breathe a little bit from working in the hardcore startup
Sure.
field for so long.
Yeah.
And
You
kind
feel
of
like your job's going to be there tomorrow for the first time.
exactly. You know, it was a very odd sensation of like, oh, I don't have to like, you know, we don't get a talk every other day of like,
Yeah.
we're a little tight on money.
Yeah. I don't have to eat what I kill every day. Yeah.
But so, yeah, so, you know, kind of, you know, hitting the Fortune 500 and then really just being able to start and go into my business and kind of start and see. And it's always been one of those. I was never able to just like take the step and be like, I'm not gonna have a job. I'm just gonna go for my business.
Sure.
I kind of built my business while I was working.
Well, it's a normal thing though, what you did and what it seems like from the outside, just to break it down like super layman's terms for the people behind the camera. It seems to me like you were going on that journey to like continue to add things to your tool bag. You know what I mean? It's like you're continuing to learn pieces of your craft in a specific way because you were bright enough to understand that you didn't have the full picture. You know what I mean? Like which is a very, very normal thing, especially in the technology world, because like I'll speak for the entire technology world. When you think you have figured it all out and you have all the answers, you don't. It's impossible to. The landscape is changing as fast as you're learning it. You know what I mean? Like it's constantly evolving, and it's one of the few things in business right now that is constantly evolving, constantly evolving. The landscape looks different every single 2 years. It's very, very different. So I would say that even without that moment of like, oh, I'm going all in on business for myself, you were still on that entrepreneurship journey because you realized that there were skills that you wanted to accumulate so that your business could take the shape that you wanted it to take. You know what I mean? So it's a very normal thing.
No, and kind of to that point, even what I've been able to do a lot since I have the heavy dev background and all this other stuff, I'm able to be the person that can go between a lot of different departments.
Yeah.
And more so speak the languages. Like
Yeah, exactly.
Working at some bigger companies, you see kind of regularly, you know, the developers are like, it should be working. And the systems people are like, but it's not. And that's kind of where the conversation dies.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, you know, I could be more of the, this is what your app's doing, kind of reading into it a little bit more. I think this is what's going on. Do you have this package? And then it became a lot more collaborative and a lot more back and forth.
Sure.
Remove the adversarial relationship.
Absolutely. We see that a lot in our industry where, like, because developers typically for payments utilize Stripe. It's like dominates the integration world. Stripe does, and good for them. But usually when we're in that situation and devs are used to using Stripe, like we may have a business conversation and we're like, oh, here's ABC reason that it's good to use us instead of Stripe. And then we talk to the developer and the developer's like, well, I only know Stripe. I just want to use Stripe. You know, I just want to do that because there's no, for a long time in our business, there was no like liaison there. There was no one that could speak the technology side and make a true comparison between what the integration looked like with Stripe and our API, and also speak the business side of like, here's why it would be good for your business, or here's why it's going to be less expensive. Here's why you're going to be able to create additional stream of revenue. You know, like we didn't have anyone that could speak that for a long time, and we kind of had to build that knowledge base ourselves, and really we built it through going through that process a couple of times. So that is an industry gap that I see as well. There's not a lot of people that speak the sales side of things specifically, definitely the sales side, because I'll tell you that developers can kill a deal talking about how extreme the amount of development is sometimes, you know what I mean? So I've experienced that as well. I could see that. And so from the Fortune 500 company, you knew you had a job for a while, right? Scale, you kind of got to see the scale of the operations. Where'd you go from there?
Yeah. So then from there, went to a little bit more of like a consulting company, because it's kind of one of those where I'd been like boots on the ground in the middle of the product that the company is building, never really seen like how to be a consultant.
Right.
So kind of doing a lot of pure DevSecOps consulting for a company, kind of working with the DoD, some other Fortune 500s, and then even an internal product. But kind of having that chance to be, you know, kind of feel that little bit more of like, okay, here's what it's like to be between two different projects that are going in two totally separate directions, that there's absolutely no overlap, and kind of, you know, how can I manage that, and how can I work with that and make that effective?
Sure. And so at this point, you're calling yourself Kammerdiener Technologies
Correct.
for the consulting side of things.
Yes.
What were some of those first opportunities like? I'm sure that you found yourself like, oh, this isn't exactly what I thought I would be consulting on. You know, the jobs are rare and unique at that point, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where some early clients, there's always that like, really, this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's always one of those like I always have that. I've always had the conversation because I've had a few people come up to me with, I have this crazy app idea, like, and I just pay you to build it, and it's like let's take the step back before you pay me the 15,000-20,000 to go build this app for you that has no proven track record.
Oh yeah,
right now.
Yeah, and that's only your MVP.
Yeah, and let's just. Do you have someone you can sell it to tomorrow?
Yeah,
and then but no, some interesting early clients. One of my earliest clients, it was working. He was a LED light reseller.
Nice.
And so that was when I thought I wanted to do more WordPress development sites. This is very early on in our
Sure.
LLC. So, building out a WordPress site, majorly underestimated what I should have charged for it by a lot.
Because in your eyes, you're like, this is low-level technology to me, probably at that point.
Yeah, no, it's like, this shouldn't take but 3-5 hours. And then 50 hours later, it's like, this is still not done. It's like, so, getting pulled into some weird projects like that, and there's work, doing any consulting with, DoD or anything, there's always that like interesting project that comes up. So I guess I've tried to not be that one tech consultant that just like, the moment someone offers me money, be like, pay up, let's go for it.
Because I think that's that's an early stage business thing too. And you see people kind of grow out of that as well. As you're like, early on, you want to use a skill to trade time for money, right? And then it doesn't take long to want to get away from that. It really doesn't, for people to be like, oh, I don't want to do that forever. Like video production specifically. We started a video production company, and people wanted to pay X dollars for editing, right? And we hired a full-time like video engineer that was incredible, like very, very, very talented, and he didn't want to just trade time for money as far as editing services goes. So then he began to basically find these blueprint products that he could sell to businesses and replicate success on a marketing front. So like, I think it's a normal thing in business as well to be like, oh, I'm transitioning away from these weird products and these weird projects that I kind of get roped into because there's so much variability in them, and then you kind of niche down to one thing, which is what you kind of did with DevSecOps. So I wanted to kind of drill into that a little bit. Why did you choose the DevSecOps to be your specialty?
Yeah, so it's one of those where, to me, it's what I've constantly seen is kind of that, startups, everybody, even more recently, like one-person businesses, they need the solid infrastructure. Like every company, with any size app, just needs infrastructure that just works. That just, they don't have to sit there and worry about like, is the database about to run out of memory tonight or anything. But it's one of those where they don't have the money or even the work for a full-time DevOps person, and they don't need that either. So the reason that I kind of drilled harder into like the DevSecOps realm as opposed to like a pure development realm is just because in looking at everything, it's a little bit more niche. It's a little bit more of that. I've talked to plenty of people that they thought they couldn't afford a DevOps consultant for a while in their business.
Sure.
And so, kind of being able to come in and say, oh yeah, you just need a Kubernetes cluster set up, like that's $1,200, $1,500 depending on whatever, and then you'll have your app deploying, some monitoring, some scaling, all the basics to just run your app. And then when you grow, we can very easily take this and spin it up into whatever else needs to exist.
Basically as aggressive as we need it to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. Chick-fil-A taught me about the Kubernetes actually. Yeah, they it's it's wonderful technology. That was one of the most interesting things I think I've learned about in the technology field in the last couple of years. But that is interesting. And so from what I understand, people without the eye for the scale early kind of set themselves up for failure, right? They set themselves up in a way where they, what their interactions with AWS or their interactions with whatever hosting or storage site, something happens in the back end, right? And it's creating inquiries or executions over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And it's basically a tremendous amount of cloud storage and data. And then they charge you based on that, right? And your service kind of insulates you from that, what we talked about, that $500,000 AWS bill. Can you speak to that, like what that horror story looks like and kind of how to avoid it a little bit?
Yeah. So, and it's one of those where, and I've been called in plenty of times when it's, the company just got $120,000 AWS bill and they have a $250,000 one on the way right now. And it's one of those where it comes down to 1,000 different things. It's a Lambda that just went off the rails and it was just calling as fast as it could. So you've got all of these executions of this Lambda and they're scanning a DynamoDB table. It's one of those where AWS, GCP, and even Azure, like they all offer these great products that will just scale up infinitely as you need them. But with infinite scale comes infinite billability.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those where kind of, while, someone might be like, oh, I can spin up a Lambda and throw it all in a DynamoDB table. And for the first, year potentially of like a hobby app, you're great. Like it's not really building up that much in costs. But it's one of those where, what I am able to help with is kind of getting some billing alerts. Mm-hmm. So, every day you kind of get instead of you getting a big bill at the end, you get an alert halfway through the month, like, hey, your bill just went up 30% overnight.
Yeah. Hey, you're cranking out 10 times as much data as you were last month for whatever reason.
Exactly. But even kind of before that, and it's why I love helping before they've even spun up an AWS account. It's one of those where I can come in and steer more towards something like DigitalOcean, Vultr, Fly, these smaller platforms and smaller clouds that, while you don't get the big massive ingress rates of AWS, GCP, and I have all the certifications and everything, and I'm saying this, but it's one of those where something with like DigitalOcean, Vultr, and Fly, I can control cost very easily.
Right.
It's one of those where, here's your cost per month, and the only reason they're going to go up is because you had to go add another pod to be able to handle the traffic that you're getting.
Right.
You lose some of the like Lambdas and some of the more like message queues and stuff. Some of the things that
like the customer experience kind of stuff, like the technology company being the customer, I imagine you lose out on a little bit of that going from a product from AWS to something like Vultr.
Yeah, you end up with a little bit more low level computer. Right. But it's one of those where, I can get, multiple apps that I've set up for people. Their cloud bill is $25 a month, and they're dealing with 1,000 daily active users. Mm-hmm. And, they're able to pocket a lot more revenue.
Yeah, something that costs you $15,000 a month with AWS.
Exactly. And, it's a much easier to control scale. I'm not getting called as much. Obviously, I don't make as much when I put them on something like that. But it's one of those where my end goal is always to put the customer in control of their own infrastructure.
Sure.
I never want to create that instance where they're like, well, if Nick goes away, what do we do?
Yeah.
It's very much a no, you're in control. I just help manage it.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. And I kind of draw the comparison between like to other industries, or even a better metaphor is like teaching people how to fish versus catching them a fish. You know what I mean? It's like you're setting it up for them, but you're explaining to people like, when you grow, this is how you grow, which is so important because as I think we've all learned, either from a consumer experience or from a business experience, technology companies tend to grow pretty quickly if they're on that. You're doing something right. Like if you're getting a $250,000 AWS bill, you made a really bad decision up front, or something is happening behind the scenes that was completely out of your control. But it means usually something is going decent. You have enough activity or user base within your product that you're generating some traffic. So I'd imagine those are a little bit easier conversations because it kind of starts off with a congratulations almost. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, this bill sucks. I know it sucks, but hey, we're going to figure this out, and good things are going to happen. So
Yeah. No, and I mean, and no one loves that bill, but
Sure.
my always hope is, when you get the $250,000 bill, you've already got the traffic and the revenue.
Yeah,
That's like,
exactly.
oh yeah, no, this is normal growth.
Yeah, it's one hurdle, not like we're going out of business.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's cool. So tell me about, like, as you're kind of transitioning into that consulting role and you're wearing that business owner hat for the first time. Like, what were you doing really well as far as like on the terms of your business, and kind of what were you learning from?
Yeah. So what I was able to do really well was a lot of the client management stuff. Just kind of coming from a heavy IT support background, doing a lot of interacting with people. I've always been very good at that, like, hey, here's your status update, and trying to like maintain that client relationship. The side that I've struggled with and still struggle with is the outreach side. It's always one of those where most of my clients have continued to come from more referrals than
Sure.
straight outreach, just kind of by nature of what it is.
Your industry, yeah, I think.
But because it's one of those, I start paying for ads. Well, there's 1,001 DevOps ads on how you should do it. So, it just kind of gets lost in everything. Or it's, I get caught up with all of the, buy our software and we'll just like magic it all behind the scenes for you and give you an infrastructure.
Right.
So the client outreach has always been the part that I've struggled with.
Sure. And what are you thinking about moving forward? Like, where's your business go from here?
So really what I'm trying to do is start and move a little bit more towards, and it's been what I've been working on a lot lately, is building out some Terraform and Ansible repositories to kind of help stand up infrastructure.
Sure.
So the
Products that you can implement and execute on a really, really quick basis that insulate the risk for the business from technology issues.
Exactly. And so, kind of rather than this, I come in, set it up, and then I go away, but trying to be, here's all the tools to go build your infrastructure and set up, pay the 50 for individuals, 500 for a company, the subscription fee, and you can go use it as much as you want. You get all the updates as, because there's always an update to every version of everything.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
So,
That's not going away, by the way. If you're listening, that's not going away ever.
But so being able to kind of provide this, trying to move from a little bit more of like here's a big contract and then it goes away and having to find the next contract.
Sure.
Moving to trying and, provide the subscription that someone can go do it themselves, but then still providing like a support forum for, hey, Terraform's throwing this weird error that I don't understand. And then it can
Sure.
be like, oh, hey, yeah, you're running into this, try X, Y, and Z, or you're on the new M1 Mac, you got to go install this random library to work.
Sure, yeah. The old lawyer method. Yeah, it's like, here's the things that you need to know, and here's what you can pay every month to know those things. And then when you have issues or something goes wrong, call me, and you're already slightly retained, and I'll kind of help you along the support side of things. That is important as well. I can't even begin to explain how important that is for businesses like mine, because we really don't have 1 second. You know what I mean? That's what you learn stepping into business, is that your time is so valuable, and the more time, and I think that there's a statistic out there that I've heard before. Well, I know I've heard it before. I can't exactly quote it, but it's like business owners spend X number of hours a year like trying to overcome technology obstacles. That is probably 10x for people in the technology space themselves. You know what I mean? People in putting out a technology product out there into the market, or building a piece of software internally for a company that they're already managing, like that. It's very, very important to be able to protect your time. So I understand the value of that as well. If we have people behind the camera that want to buy stuff from you, right? Your ideal client is listening right now. The people that want to sign that dotted line on that next contract for you, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So my website, k-tech.io.
That's much easier than your last name, I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I lost a few clients with trying to spell that out. But yeah, so that should have the contact information. The kind of Terraform and Ansible modules, they are live now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to build those?
I'm still building.
Oh, yeah. I hear that.
It's kind of one of those, it's this first round, it's just been hey, these are the modules that I've pretty much built for every company I've ever done a contract for.
Right.
And now I'm trying to build some of the more like, here's this, interesting thing that came up. But that's available on GitHub sponsors.
Nice.
So that's how I'm kind of running that. And then, the website, but, always emailing hello@kammerdiener.io gets right into the path.
Right to you. Yeah. And, tell me a little bit about kind of the emotions that you've experienced. We always use this illusion of burning the ship. And for some people, it's a light switch moment, right? Where you're like, I'm a business owner now and I have to kind of conduct myself and learn how to conduct this business in a way that it's going to grow and be profitable and be good for me, right? And you took I don't want to say reserved path, but it's a more methodical path, right? And I think that's kind of the requirement for your industry. The lifelong learning that happens in your industry, I think, is unique to every other industry in the world and probably always will be. But tell me about, kind of that moment or moments where you're like, oh, I'm a business owner now, and here are those things, and really what it feels like and why other people should kind of seek that out.
Yeah. So I think the first moment for me was kind of once I got the EIN number.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of that like, I own a business now. And tell a little bit of a joke on my dad. My dad had said back when he was younger, he always viewed success as when he was driving his own vehicle, wearing a tie to his job. That was his definition of success. And as he was driving an older T100 truck to his job at Radio Shack wearing a tie, he was like, I need to get a little bit more specific. Yeah. But so that was kind of, had the same realization of my dad, like, it's really easy to own a business. Like, you get the EIN, you are technically...
Yeah, LegalZoom can hook you up today. Yeah.
Or my wife's an attorney that sets up those.
Oh, yeah, even easier. Yeah, that's a good referral. If you want to own a business tomorrow, well, actually, probably should call Monday.
But you are technically a business owner. The part that it like really hit me and was like, okay, this is something that, because I always kind of viewed it as just like, oh, it's gonna be this side thing I'll do 5-10 hours a week, maybe able to take an extra vacation a year.
Where did you kind of view yourself? Did you see yourself landing like Fortune 500 company managing data infrastructure? Or?
So I don't know that I really thought doing that. Initially when I started, I wanted to do IT consulting, like just managing computers,
manage IT services for small to medium-sized businesses.
And I do that for plenty of people. I get a client here and there for that. But it's one of those where, again, it kind of got back to with my first job, it's 30 minutes of feeling like a genius, 6 months of So, it's kind of been the DevSecOps has been what I've been focusing more on just because it's more fulfilling.
Sure.
But kind of, I think the biggest point for me is once I was able to start paying myself a salary out of my business, and not like here's $500 a month of a salary, but like a real salary. It was like, okay, this is something that's grown to where I can't just like be like, oh yeah, it's a random thing on the side. Like, sure,
it's a big portion of income for me. Yeah, it's kind of the way of life. Yeah, I understand that. People, I think people cheat themselves out of that sometimes by pulling money out of their business. I encourage people to pay yourself a salary from day one, even if it's $20 a week, because then you know how much money's coming in, and then you can adjust your salary slowly as your income adjusts. But if you're like, oh, I'm just going to wait until I get $3,000 in there, and then I'll pull the $3,000 out, I think that limits your growth because it limits your mindset of predictability. You know what I mean? Like we really subscribe to the idea of predictable revenue, and I think that is a very important part of business. So congratulations.
I kind of took, if you've seen YNAB, the
Absolutely.
app, I kind of took their whole live off of last month's income to the next extreme with my business. So really with my LLC, I try to live off of last year's revenue. So it's
nice.
So it's one of those where, it means that it's a little bit weird in some finances, but it's that comforting part for me, where it's kind of one of those where because my wife's looked at me and been like, well, what happens if all your clients decide tomorrow we're done with you, we're not paying you?
I got a
dime.
cushion 12 months thick.
Yeah, and I've made the joke, I'm like, if I can't find a tech job in 12 months,
Yeah.
something's wrong with me.
Yeah. Should pursue a career at Radio Shack. There are plenty of technology jobs out there too, and it is weirdly a high turnover industry. You know what I mean? Is people are always seeking out that next opportunity, which I think is really, really strange. Just to me, maybe it's from my industry as well. Maybe I have a little bit of bias from my industry as well. But I always thought like the play on equity and like really diving into a culture of like being a part of the culture, being a part of the team, being a tool that the business uses to be successful is such a unique opportunity. And when you can do that with your own business yourself, kind of the way that you do, is be so integral to the success of these different companies. I think it's really, really unique. You know what I mean? So I'm interested to see where it goes. I literally have someone in my network that I think that I'm going to introduce you to him for sure, but I think that you guys would definitely hit it off and speak the same language. And he is in the middle of a project himself, and he is a very, very talented developer. So he probably won't hire you, but all the people that are trying to hire him, I'm sure he is happy to make an introduction because his skill set is very similar.
Sure.
So I would love to make an introduction to that guy, but anything else that we can do for you as well over here at the MP group or with the podcast or anything like that, please just let us know, because I think what you do is very, very unique, and I wanted to talk to you about it and kind of shine a little bit of light out there to the technology companies that may be listening, that there are people that will consult with you totally based on the ongoing health of your own business. You know what I mean? So thank you for coming. If you have anything else to say, please, the floor is yours. But I appreciate you coming. I really do.
No, I appreciate y'all having me. It's been a really enjoyable experience.
Well, thank you. I'll edit this up. Probably not today. I have a little bit of a catalog of podcasts. I lost my phone on the river Monday.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's been a pain in the ass. I got another one on Wednesday, so I'm like still 2 days behind. I'm gonna have to work Saturday and Sunday to be on Monday's schedule on Monday. But I'll edit this probably next week and put it up, and then I'll touch base with you again, and I'll make that introduction to a buddy of mine at the beginning of next week as well, just because I think the likelihood of it landing in the right place on Friday afternoon is lower. But I'll definitely introduce you guys on Monday and see how it goes. I'm interested to hear how that conversation goes as well. But yeah, anything that we can do for you, my friend, we are supporters of small business, and you are that, and I don't think you will be for long. You will continue to tear in the right direction because you're implementing solutions that go a long way. So thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.